My guest today on the buck stops here could perhaps be best described by one word, and the word I would use is unputdownable. The other word some people may use is combative. She entered the Modi government's cabinet as its youngest minister and has been in the headlines ever since. It is my pleasure to welcome on the buck stops here the Minister for Human Resource Development, Smriti Irani.
Hi.
I'm glad we're finally doing this at your residence here in Delhi, and we're going to take a morning walk through a very interesting neighborhood because I believe Rahul Gandhi lives not too far away from here.
Lives right across the road. My apologies for delaying the interview with you. You've been pursuing me for 1.5 years now, and I had a good reason to delay.
What's the reason?
Well, you have a hate-hate relationship with our supporters online. And most of our supporters have this angst that when Barkha is not so kind in her words and her retorts and her interactions with us, why would we have a la-di-da kind of a relationship with her?
I'll tell you something about those online supporters. They seem to watch everything I do. Chapter and verse they quote it. So even if they don't like me, they don't ignore me.
I think that you're not the only one that they watch. I feel that the internet now has given us that additional leverage where we are not dictated to by the or projected a particular image by a particular set of people. I think in the age of Google, every citizen now is empowered with additional information. Citizens who do not hide behind the cloak of anonymity, but they come out with documents or interesting data, and they don't want to be sitting ducks who are doled out a narrative. They want to engage. That engagement at times gets heated.
Which is fine, but shouldn't one engage with all manners of opinions? Like, even if your supporters, you say you don't like me, as a politician, you should, don't you think you should engage with all kinds of opinions, all shades of media?
I engage with all kinds of opinions, irrespective of whether they are in the media or not. As a politician who has fought one of the toughest electoral battles in 2014, I was witness to people who are architects, lawyers, who go to a 9-to-5 job, who left everything and came to Amethi. I had a woman who was 7 months pregnant, left aside everything, irrespective of her health challenges, sat there because she believed in an ideology. And when I look back as to who do I owe my success to, it is these people that I owe my success to. It is these people I'm answerable to, apart from the people of the country, whom I serve as a cabinet minister.
But you know, while I'm glad you're finally doing this interview on a lighter note, there are some Modi supporters who don't like either me or you, and I can think of one, Madhu Kishwar. So you see, we have more in common than you know.
Well, I don't know whether that is a compliment or not.
No, it's just a joke. It's just a joke.
I can only say this much, that the dissent that we see, irrespective of which ideology you belong to, is the very bedrock of a democracy. To say a democracy prospers only if one set of voices is heard would be untrue. I have seen dissent, I have as a woman seen objectification, and I have let a lot of things come in my stride. Because I feel that if it is a democratic right of an individual to speak against me, then that individual doesn't need my prior approval to say what they feel, even if it is venomous or scandalous about me.
Were you taken aback by Madhu Kishwar's very, very scathing, almost personal criticism of you? She seemed to resent the fact that you were given this ministry. Some people joke that maybe she thought she would get the ministry.
No, I don't use this platform even today. When I have the opportunity to express myself, to give individual attention to any one individual who deems it fit to criticize me. How personal an attack they mount is their choice.
Were you hurt? Were you angry? You know, you're very quick to retaliate to a lot of other critics online. I've never seen you retaliating.
I always attack somebody who is trying to spread disinformation. But I'm also intelligent enough to know when there is a particular imagery that is being projected only so that I can be engaged and be a part of mudslinging. So I know how to distinguish between the two.
So you think that's what she's been trying to do?
Like I said, if you are wasting 5 minutes of an interview with me on her, that is your prerogative.
That's a good point. That's a good point. I was only making a limited joke that we have that in common.
No, I think that one needs to recognize that beyond our constitutional positions, we are also human beings.
Sure.
So when you talk about me in a particular light, you need to recognize that my children, my family also read, also watch. And more than anything else, I am answerable to them to allay their fears as to why would people talk about me like this. For instance, I mean, just a month ago, I went to my son's PTA meeting. He's 14 years old, and his class teacher told me, Mrs. Irani, why don't you have a sas or a mother at home? And I said, why? She says, well, you're too much on TV.
What does that mean?
And you're a politician. I don't think you have the time to raise your kid.
Oh, that's terrible.
And no, but that is her opinion.
No, but it's a terrible thing to say to a woman, right? It's the guilt factor that we put at the doorstep.
This is a working woman herself. So it's not as if she is somebody who is traditionally looked upon as regressive. This is a working woman who has a point of view. And I wanted to say something, and my 14-year-old held me back. He says, don't. And I said, why? He said, because you speak as a working mother. She looks at you as a minister. So,
that's very grown up of him at 14.
Yes, but your kids also tend to grow up because they look at all this around. I had a colleague, he's a lawyer of repute. I can't name him. His 14-year-old daughter was picked up by the bunch of people who are anti-Modi. And they had that child. And they told that child that, you know, your father is supporting Modi and, you know, you should speak against your father. They called a journalist, a female journalist, and say, interview this child, she will give you some bombastic headlines against the father. It is the journalist who said, I can't do this to a minor kid, and walked away. But this is the story of our lives which never get told.
Let me ask you, you know, since you've spoken about your kids, and they must look at you being in the headlines all the time. Have you made your peace with being in the headlines all the time? Often some would say for the wrong reasons.
I've been a public person for the last 15 years.
But did you expect to get this kind of media scrutiny?
What are the right reasons? Am I to be quiet only because now I'm a minister? Am I supposed to, as some youngsters call it, lump it and be absolutely quiet when somebody tries to spread disinformation? There are times when many issues, I mean, I was in Goa, there's an incident that happened, and people said, "Arey, chup kyun nahi the aap? आपको बोलना नहीं चाहिए था." मैंने कहा, आप क्या expect करते हैं कि अगर कोई पुरुष ऐसा करे तो मैं क्या कहूँ, भाई साहब मैं अबला नारी हूँ, मत कीजिए. I said, as a woman, it is my right to call the police. ये तो मैं कैबिनेट मंत्री हूँ, इसलिए मैं अपनी कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल मर्यादा को समझती हूँ. और मैंने उस गुस्से के साथ रिएक्ट नहीं किया जो एक साधारण महिला करती. पहले मारती, फिर पुलिस को बुलाती. मैंने कहा, लेकिन मेरी अपनी एक मर्यादा है और उस मर्यादा में मेरे अधिकार जो मैं कर सकती हूँ इस्तेमाल, पुलिस को बुलाना, वो मैंने किया. So irrespective of the fact that I'm supposed to be a this demure cabinet minister.
I don't think that word has ever been used for you.
I'm supposed to lump it.
That is one word that has never been used for you.
I'm supposed to lump it, and people are supposed to tell me when is it appropriate to talk. But my understanding is, when did I give up my right to free speech? When I became a minister. So, I mean, I was recently in a Women in the World conference.
I was right there at Tira Brown, and I was going to ask you about that. You said that no woman in your experience in India is dictated to on what she should do, who she should meet, what she should wear.
And what is my experience? My experience when people talk about me, and I've said this and I've not hidden it, I am from a Swayamsevak's family.
Yeah.
The imagery of a Swayamsevak's family or a Sangh Parivar is that women are suppressed, that they are regressive, they are dictated to by men. My personal experience with not only my own life, but also those of women who are from the Parivar, has been that we've genuinely never been dictated to. So, and I think that it's a measure of tolerance that I, being a cabinet minister, can sit in an audience and get booed by those people who claim there's no free speech in the country. Additionally, I'd rather, as an individual, rather be booed than be applauded for demonizing my people. I mean...
who are you referring to?
Anybody who says that, everybody is regressive, every man in this country is either a chauvinist or a rapist, that is not true of my nation. I personally, as a Hindu woman, what is my experience? I spoke of my experience. I'm raising 2 children in the religion of Zoroastrianism. Any Parsi, ask them what Ashem Vahu and Yatha where you are. They are Parsi prayers from the Avesta. I am the one who taught it to my kids.
But you're not just speaking as a minister for yourself and for your own experience, right?
That was my own experience.
But Khap Panchayats, college diktats on dress code, sexual violence, women today who get abused still told it's your fault that you were out at that time.
This is not a challenge which is contained only to India. There is a rape, abuse, incest national network in the US which says that the number of reported sexual assault cases is around 2,93,000 in the US. In India, your National Crime Records Bureau shows that the number of reported assaults is 36,000 thereabouts. UN Women says that at least 50% of cases all across the world go unreported, which means that this challenge about a woman's sexuality, or for that matter, a woman's right to express what she seriously feels, is not only a challenge that our nation or our society faces. I mean, NDTV carried a report where the Fed chair, Janet Yellen, was written to by an American male politician that if you don't know how to, work your offices, sit with your Nobel laureate economic professor husband.
No, I agree that gender is a universal question. It's not an India-specific one. I believe
No,
that
so
too.
why is it that
But when you say that women are not dictated to, you're speaking for all women.
Experience. I said it's my experience.
How did you react to the booing?
I didn't.
How did you feel inside when you were jeered at for those comments?
No, I said very openly, if you have a problem, tell me if I need to engage with somebody. I can reach out to any woman who says that she has a problem and needs somebody to engage with somebody in society or within her own.
You are aware that women do face these challenges every day,
and
you're presenting a portrait
no,
where women
but I said my experience. And
your personal experience.
My personal experience, not only with my life, but that of other women that I have known, is different.
Isn't your experience rare?
No. No.
Women all around, when we open the newspapers,
no,
women we know,
did anybody, let's presume I talk about my experience with you. Now, who tells Barkha Dutt what to dress? How to dress?
Nobody. But I recognize that I come perhaps from a background of privilege, that I'm rare.
Don't.
I come from an unusually liberal family.
No,
my parents never pressured me.
I don't come from an elite family. I come from a Sangh Parivar Swayam Sevak family.
Our Khap Panchayats are 2 hours from Delhi.
Is there a Khap Panchayat in a US academic institution which says women are not to wear provocative?
Gender discrimination is universal.
That's what I'm saying.
It is
so
universal.
Everywhere there is a challenge. Is there a Taliban or a Khap Panchayat in the US telling women you should wear this and you should not wear that? So why only say that only we have an Indian problem? You have an international problem in terms of discourse, in terms of engagement. You can't wish it away.
So when you look back at those statements you made at the Women in the World Summit,
I spoke of my experience and I stand by my experience.
Stand by that. You don't think you could have articulated that a little bit differently?
Barkha, articulation cannot depend on the, like I said, prior approval or for that matter, a guarantee of embracement by others. Free speech is about I having as much a right to speak as somebody else from another ideology, or for that matter, no ideology at all.
But you know, when you...
Why would I be told that why don't you speak the correct things? That is curbing of freedom of expression or speech. The fact that I can speak freely, get booed, and still look at the eyes of that particular audience, which is distinct from others that I meet. And I said, well, if you have a problem, tell me, I'm willing to reach out and help. There was, there was a little bit of disconcerting noises that, domestic violence to shehron mein nahi hota. People were upset that this only happens in the dusty bylanes of some village. That is not true.
That's not
People
true.
forget, there was I remember a Smriti Irani ad where there was a Ghanti Bajao ad. That if you hear Ghanti, koi gaon mein nahi baja raha hai, sheher mein baja raha hai. So you can't wish it away.
That's the point. People thought you were wishing it away.
I was not. I was giving facts right there.
But tell
they want to be subjective and selective about the facts that they choose and pick.
But tell me, when a Sakshi Maharaj speaks of Hindu women needing to produce 5 children, I mean, isn't that a kind of dictating to women what they should do?
As a Swayam Sevak, Sarsanga Chalak Mohan Bhagwat ji has said that is not a correct statement to make. There is a congressman in Kerala who says every woman in the Congress party has to compromise to get a ticket.
Yeah, the sexism is not particular to one country, one city,
why
one party.
Is it that an outrage is made only for a selective few and not for everybody? I have been in Parliament.
You have been at the receiving end of sexism, Smriti, by Sharad Yadav, and we all stood up as women, at least I did, and condemned it outright.
I have it every day, even in my working life. You know, there's an IIT professor, there was an IIT Women's Alumni Meet. I'm the council chairperson of IITs. And I always ask organizations that when you want to call me, make sure there's a unanimity of view that you want to engage with me in terms of me giving a lecture there. I have an email, which I have showed you before this interview, where the guy says, well, otherwise she's brain dead, but her appearance will make it interesting. And I've had that mail for a good 10 months now.
Did you respond to it?
No.
What is the most sexist thing you've ever heard said to you about you?
Barkha, I do not confine myself to the negativity that comes my way.
But still,
because
as a woman in public life,
if that was my way of functioning, I would have been submerged in the negativity and would have never managed to stand up, respond, and focus on my work.
But as you said, you're not just a politician, you're also a human.
No, I am a human
and you're a
being,
woman.
and
You're a woman in public life.
No, I think that when you judge me, you will see that in the past 1.5 years, what has been my contribution as a politician? The Prime Minister spoke from the Red Fort and said, is there a possibility that we have around 2.5 lakh schools without separate toilets for girls? Can we make those toilets in 1 year? It is a infrastructural impossibility for people. But I did it in 1 year. But nobody spoke about it because these are the positive messages nobody cares about. For the first time, a so-called unpad me leverages technology to ensure all NCERT books are given.
So-called unpad you?
No, I don't mind. I have said this in the Women in the World interview also. That when I think of the Sanskrit shlok, Vidya Dadati Vinayam, it means with knowledge comes humility. And those who would want to objectify me academically might be knowledgeable, but possibly that humility has not seeped in. So that means that knowledge is not working wonders.
Okay, you've mentioned the IIT professor. And
Yes.
IIT professor takes me to some of the central controversies that have, dogged you vis-a-vis your ministry.
Yeah.
Let's start with Anil Kakotkar.
Yes.
Let's start with Anil Kakotkar.
Though I've never spoken about it.
Well, I hope you'll be speaking about it for the first time today. Anil Kakotkar said that you had a very casual, your ministry had a very casual approach to how IIT directors were being selected.
No.
He didn't want to be part of the process. He put in his papers. He then said you convinced him to stay on and complete
Yes.
his term.
Yes.
Now that all that is behind us, do you believe that antagonizing somebody as respected as a nuclear scientist like Anil Kakotkar is something that could be handled
The problem lies in
differently?
the question that you posed.
What's the problem?
Is my responsibility towards the taxpayer and those even who don't pay taxes, is my responsibility towards them, or am I to use my office to make sure that I cozy up to any such people that you deem intellectual or who are celebrated as intellectual? Why I say this is that I've never spoken about Dr. Kakotkar, and I say this today. I, as a chairperson of IIT Council, had an opportunity to sit on selection of 3 directors. As propriety and as the law demands, the chairpersons of each IIT was very much a part of the selection process. People are supposed to apply for the job, get interviewed, and then come up to the final round. I saw a name which had not applied for the job, which had not done any interviews. And I told Dr. Kakotkar that I am to step out for a parliamentary meeting. Kindly ensure that this name, which has not applied for the job, which has not given any interview, does not make it to the final round because it's illegal and it's improper.
Which
I said,
name was it?
Whichever name. It's a part of records.
And you're
what
saying that name had not gone through the due process.
Due process. And I said, who picked that name? He said, I did. I said, sir, with all due respect, this cannot happen. I said, in my absence, kindly don't interview this gentleman, otherwise you will sully the entire process. I come back and I'm told, maine interview kar liya hai. I said, sir, in that case, you have to call everybody who applied for the job again, so that they give their interviews again. And this gentleman be told that next time he wants a job, kindly put in, a word by applying for the job, giving interview, going through the due process, and then. He was slighted that I am Dr. Kakotkar and why wouldn't you listen to me? I said, I am supposed to listen to the rule of law. Does that mean that I get clobbered in the media for what Dr. Kakotkar said about me? Absolutely, that is his right. But what I am saying today are papers which are available with me, which I can prove in a court of law.
So
who did we end up picking, Barkha? That is also very important. We ended up picking one of the foremost names who has designed communication technologies for Indian missile systems. We picked a guy called Pushpak Bhattacharya, who's celebrated for his work in ICT, especially for translation of languages. And these are the quality men of academia that we picked. But the story got totally overshadowed by Dr. Kakotkar, who was visibly upset. Why? Because an upstart of a minister said, follow the law.
So your charge...
Eminence does not give you the right in any fashion to break the law.
And you're saying Dr. Kakotkar was trying to break the law?
I am not trying to
bend the rules? Bend the rules?
Whatever. I have given you a factual recount of the story. My request is, eminence in no way gives you an opportunity or a handle to break the law. What I speak today is very much on file. I never speak without evidence.
If he had indeed bent the rules as you're suggesting, why is it that after he resigned, you did ask him, according to him, to complete his term?
He was supposed to complete his term. I spoke to him. I said, sir, would you please complete your term? And he said, yes. That's it. It's as simple as that. An opportunity was an attempt to, deviate from process of due process was stopped by me. But I was pragmatic enough to say that you are in a leadership role. Would you like to fulfill your obligations to the institution? He said yes.
So you're saying Dr. Kakodkar was pushing his
this
own
is
candidate.
Please understand,
intervened, and that's
please
why
understand,
he's
this
angry
is not
with you?
an interview about Dr. Kakodkar or Madhu Kishwar. It's an interview about me.
It's one of your decisions that we're discussing.
It is one of my decisions which is there on paper. It is not something that I can fabricate or be at the top of my head tomorrow. If I have to answer this in Parliament, I have the papers to prove it.
Okay, let's move on to another controversy, if we can use that word, that often accompanies discussions on the HRD ministry. That many of the key appointees are people who have an affinity with the RSS, about whom you've just said you've had a long family association for many, many years.
Yes.
But one would imagine that you would separate that from being minister.
No, but I'm not saying that that makes you, that qualifies you as an academician who shall be appointed. I'm very clear on that.
Okay, so when we look at the gentleman who heads the ICHR, the Indian Council for Historical Research, who has argued more than once that the Ramayana and Mahabharata are in fact historic texts. This is who has on occasion justified and validated the caste system.
Let me tell you this. The gentleman that you speak about was made a national professor by none other than Arjun Singh, who was not a Sanghi nor was he a BJP member. He was a Congress stalwart. Now, does that imply that Arjun Singh was a closet RSS man? So how is it okay for a Congress stalwart to pick an academician, but not okay for me?
Isn't ICHR head a bigger deal than a national professor?
I think that one needs to understand that just because you have a particular ideological affinity or a background of any sort, that doesn't mean that constitutionally you do not have the right to receive a job or a post that you are otherwise deemed fit for under a Congress regime.
Do you agree with his views? As a minister for HRD, are you concerned that the person who in charge of ICHR believes the Ramayana and Mahabharata to be historic texts?
As a minister in a government, I cannot subscribe to or propagate my personal views. I'm in a constitutional position where people who are appointed for their responsibilities have the right to speak what they feel is academically within the realm of their responsibility.
But there must be some basis to appoint him.
If you start asking me about my personal views about a lot of things, possibly that will mean that I'm unfit to be in this constitutional position where I have to take every voice along. So as much as I support an IIT professor who talks about my appearance, makes sexual innuendos and objectifies me, and I don't respond to it.
Nobody supports that.
Similarly, I don't respond to anybody else because my constitutional position is to guarantee that everybody who works within an institution of academic repute has a right to their view as long as they administer the institution well.
But there must have been a professional basis to make that appointment, right?
ICHR appointments are made when a panel comes of academicians that they deem fit and they ask the government to pick a name. So whoever made that charge possibly doesn't know about that due process.
Were you part of that process?
No, you have to be equidistant. So when you're given a panel, you just apply one name and you say, fine, I accept your panel. You do not say, I don't accept, or for that matter, can you think of another name? That is what happens in all appointments.
But why is there a perception that it's only after this government has come to power that somebody like Dinanath Batra gets to have as much of a say in the education policy as he does?
No, he doesn't have a say in my ministry, I'm sorry.
Look at the headlines from 2 days ago.
No,
Haryana,
that is
a
not,
BJP government.
Please understand.
He's now going to be on a panel advising them on education.
Please understand, that is a democratically elected state government.
Yes.
Am I to say that I will usurp the powers of a democratically elected state government just because I don't agree with it or I don't endorse it, or for that matter I want to propagate it? My responsibility as a cabinet minister is to be equidistant. Karnataka, for instance, wanted primary education in the mother tongue. and had an assembly which unanimously passed such a resolution. There is no saffron government in Karnataka. It is the right of that assembly to pass a law as they deem fit. Whether that upholds the scrutiny of law in the Supreme Court, which turned it down, is the right of the Supreme Court. But as a minister, I am equidistant from all of them because this is a concurrent subject which binds me from not going beyond a constitutional maryada.
But you know, when you look at Dinanath Batra's textbooks, which were part of supplementary books in Gujarat,
Again, one needs to understand, curriculum falls within the realm of the state. Teacher appointments, teacher transfers fall within the realm of the state. Does not fall within the jurisdiction of the central government. We might set a constitutional standard and law for the entire nation, but we cannot usurp the powers of a state government and tell them how to function.
Smriti, you're a parent. Would you want your kids to be reading books in which it is suggested that if you blow out candles on a cake on your birthday, it is something wrong to do because it's Western? Would you want your kids to read books written by Dinanath Batra?
I'll tell you as a parent, since you're asking me. I have a child in the 9th standard and the 7th standard. I am teaching my child 7th standard civics. What is it written in the 7th standard civics? That this country is so unequal that the poor have no rights. That is there in the civics books. So is that true?
So that's ridiculous.
Secondly, my son in his history book gets to learn that Lokmanya Tilak is an extremist. Now the same child reads a newspaper in the morning and knows that extremism is defined by a man like Osama bin Laden. I have to sit there as a parent and tell him how Tilak was not an extremist but Osama was. So, like I said, challenges are aplenty, but I need to distinguish between the parent and the minister, and that is what I do every day.
But even as we are talking here, today there's a seminar.
What is interesting is that how come you never do stories on the fact that Tilak is being presented as an extremist?
But textbook curriculums have long been a subject of media debate.
How come there has never been a We the People on demonizing great freedom fighters like Tilak or Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose, or for that matter, even a Barkha Dutt does not get a mention.
But there have been many We the Peoples on whether politics has actually taken over textbook writing.
That's a very
by
convenient
the right
way.
and the left. I include the left in it.
That's a very convenient way of camouflaging.
The left in it
so when you are specific to a particular individual in the modern context, also be specific now about other historical greats who have genuinely been projected in a very unjustified fashion.
But you haven't answered
my question. But then I'm speaking as
okay, so you're saying Barkha is a hypocrite, she hasn't done these shows.
No, I'm not saying it. No, hang on, I'm not saying it, you're saying it. It's a declaration by Barkha Dutt, not by me.
I'm being ironic, but let's come to the question. What is a Dinanath Batra for you? And I'm asking you this because even today, Delhi University Sanskrit Department is organizing a seminar. He's a keynote speaker. He's advising the Haryana government.
Autonomy cannot be conditional. I cannot say Delhi University has autonomy for every other thing but one seminar. I cannot say Haryana government has the constitutional right to declare certain policies for its state but for this one particular individual.
What is the influence that Dinanath Batra has on your ministry?
Nothing, zero.
Have you met him?
No.
Never?
No.
He's never come to meet you?
No, why would he come to meet me?
Because he's advising one BJP government on their education policy, Haryana. He's writing supplementary textbooks.
You can flog this horse as much as you want. But what I have not done, I shall not declare.
I'm just asking you what he is.
So let me tell you what I have done.
How do you see him? How do you see Dinanath Batra?
I don't.
What do you mean you don't?
I don't.
He doesn't matter?
No, I'm not saying that. As a citizen, he has a right to his opinion and his speech and his expression. But why would I sit in judgment of him just because I'm a cabinet minister? Do I sit in judgment of you? I don't.
Think sometimes you do.
No.
No.
Otherwise, if I did, Barkha, I would say, "Arey, आपको ED का notice मिला, मुझे interview नहीं करना चाहिए. आपका radio में नाम है मुझे." I don't sit in judgment of anybody.
No, but those are questions.
The beauty. No, I'll tell you the beauty of this. I mean, I look at it from the background that I belong to. You had, I mean, this might not sound like a very political interview, but you had Krishna Bhagwan telling Arjun in Gita that this is the architecture of life. This is how one responds to relationships. This is how truth wins over the untruth. But at the end of it, Krishna says, Yatha ichchasi tatha kuru. Do as you shall please. So when my God doesn't sit in judgment of others, why should I sit in judgment?
No, it's not about sitting in
myself?
judgment. See, all of us in the public eye,
I can do. I can tell you what I can do.
Okay.
What did I do in the history of this country? Never before was education policy derived by engaging directly with the people. We said we have around over 2.5 lakh village education councils. We have all the blocks, all the districts, all the states that need to deliberate upon education. Tell us what you want. Give us that documentation. People said, "Arey, koi nahi karta yahan pe, kaun bolega?" But today I am witness that over 853 villages have put up their resolutions for education on mygov.in. We have a drafting committee headed by a gentleman called TSR Subramaniam. Last I checked, Mr. Subramaniam had nothing to do with the saffron agenda. Which means as a government, we have said that let policy have a reflection of the will of the people of this country. But because for too long, they have been told from the top up, this is what is good for you. And that is not how I saw policy unfold in the country.
But Smriti, you know, as people in the public space, you much more than me, we're all used to asking questions, we're also used to answering questions.
I'm answering your question.
So the question I come back to is, do you accept that in the last year plus, we've heard more from Dinanath Batra than we used to earlier, and why is that?
My issue is this, why haven't you gone to those 93 or 96,000 villages yourself? You haven't. They are speaking, you don't want to listen, or you don't want to project it. Now that is not their fault. They are speaking.
Now how far do you push this principle of what you call autonomy? You said you can't have selective autonomy, right?
You can't.
Now, you forwarded a letter from a Mr. Jain talking about how there should be vegetarian food in the IIT canteens. And you said, I simply got the representation, I forwarded it.
Under the public grievances mechanism.
Why was this work, why was SSK Jain's letter,
understand.
who has again an RSS affiliation, worth forwarding? Why was it worth
I'll give you another example. What is autonomy? Autonomy is that I have an IIM somewhere in Uttar Pradesh where a professor was hauled up by the chairperson. Why? Because I also didn't know this. Mohanji had gone to his house to eat lunch. And that professor was asked, how dare you feed lunch to Mohan Bhagwat? Now, I am respective of that autonomy of that institution, not to tell that chairperson that it's none of your business who comes to eat in whose house. Your authority rests with only seeing how a professor works within a given institution and not what ideology a professor might or might not have. There are many people who are working in IITs, IIMs today, central universities, who were picked by my predecessors. But now, you know, surprisingly, Pallam Raju's OSD is today a joint secretary in HRD. Suresh Pachori's wife was one of the directors, and I had a very good working relationship with her for over 1 year. I'm not in a position where I sit there and say that just because you don't believe in my ideology or my polity, you shall be persecuted.
I'm just trying to understand the logic behind
forwarding
a grievance on vegetarian food in the IITs. Can't the IITs decide for themselves?
That is what the decision was, that this is not our subject. Whose subject is it? Kindly please forward it to them. It's their decision, not ours. There is a difference between saying, do this, and saying, this is a communication we have received which is not within our jurisdiction. It is your jurisdiction, please decide as you deem fit. How is that trampling of free speech or association, or for that matter any ideology? That is saying you have the academic administrative autonomy to take your decisions. Under the rule of law, especially when it comes to public grievances, an officer, I don't think many people understand, are duty bound to forward information that they get so that it gets processed at the given institution. It is not our right to direct. We can only say, we've got this is your baby, please answer.
The question is, why would you, as an HRD minister...
So are you saying that I need to sit and sort my mail out? Oh, acha, so this guy was voting for BJP, so let me not forward his mail.
But some mail may not be worth forwarding,
No, but that is not for me. Please understand, that is not for me to judge.
You shouldn't apply a filter of the mind?
Please understand, can you imagine a filter that I would start applying as per the perception ideologically on citizens' right to speak?
Did you
and
agree
demand
with this letter?
answer?
Did you agree with
I didn't even see the letter because it's not my job to sit there and filter letters on the basis of ideology.
Okay, let me move on to the next question. The question is this. The question is, why you've spoken about Dr. Kakotkar now for the first time in this interview, but the IIMs.
This is not about
the IIMs. I moved on to the next issue. The IIMs.
This is not about the individual. Please understand, this is about the principle.
The Indian Institute of Management directors have been extremely
one
worried.
director. Two directors.
Two directors.
Ahmedabad and Bangalore.
Have been worried. Two of our most premier institutions. That their autonomy.
But do you know
Let me just complete my question, then you can answer. That their autonomy will be compromised if you bring in a new bill.
But do you know who they are?
You tell me.
They are foreign citizens, both of them.
They're not Indian citizens?
No, they are not. That's what I'm saying. The beauty of, in terms of tolerance of this government is this, that even a foreign citizen can call our free press, wax eloquent about our government and our systems, tell us how our parliament should legislate, and a celebrated journalist like Barkha Dutt gets to ask me that question.
But.
No, there is no but.
No, the but is, why is there a concern? Okay, why is this new bill important? No, and how do you assure the IIM students, forget the directors, how are you going to assure the IIM students that their independence and autonomy will not be compromised?
Please understand, I am the chairperson of the IIT Council. In my 1.5 years, what has happened in the IIT? There has been a launch of a program called Imprint India. What is Imprint India? We have 10 sectors of science and technology from the perception of research. I have personally, and the government has also pushed to ensure that at the launch of this, which was launched by the Honorable Prime Minister, it was his vision, that let's sit down and earmark those sectors where we need to develop new knowledge and increase manpower. We had, I think, an allocation of at least 750 crores in one go, which is the highest ever allocation for research. My question is, did you do a story on it?
No, that's a fair question.
Because your stories get more mileage.
But the nature of news is that you chase the problem or the controversy.
But you please understand that the nature of our politics is that irrespective of the barbs, the criticism, the bashing, we don't deter from our work.
Can you assure people who are IIM alumni or who are students in the IIMs that the government is not interested in interfering in the autonomous space?
Please understand that the government is not doing a legislative diktat or an executive order. The government for the first time has taken a legislative issue, put it on mygov.in so that people in this country can respond with their ideas about it. That is the expanse of our deliberation. Then the government is going to put it up to a parliament where people from various political ideologies have a say in what the final document or that final law will look like. And this law for the first time will facilitate those students who are studying in an IIM to get a degree. Right now, they don't have a degree.
Are you reviewing some clauses? That's what was reported.
I was Kiran Majumdar Shaw, the chairperson of IIM Bangalore met me.
She also expressed some
She expressed and she asked me, Smriti, I don't understand visitor. What is visitor?
Yeah.
And I told her, Kiran, the visitor means the President of India. So I didn't know that. So we are engaging and discussing and deliberating. And we are crossing a road which is pretty busy.
Now we are crossing a road to a very interesting part of the neighborhood, by the way. I should tell our viewers. Down this road is where Rahul Gandhi lives. And I love the ironies of this political neighborhood.
No, but I don't think it's an irony.
No, it's an
I think that this is the healthy outcome of Indian politics. That you have here a celebrated scion of an Indian political family who lives across the lane to a kid who came from nowhere, whose mother was a housekeeper at Taj Mansingh once upon a time. I mean, it's ironical that when we were doing the Women in the World interview, we were doing it at Taj Mansingh.
Yeah.
And I was thinking of my mother.
Your mom worked
My
there?
mom was a worker there, had to scrub bathrooms and the floors and keep, whatever housekeeping assignments is being given. And I remember the first house I ever got as an MP was right across the road. So I called my mom. I said, guess where I live? She said, where? I said, I live right opposite the Taj. And my mother, I remember the chef was very kind. He would say that, Are ye bacha hai, I'm making a nice club sandwich. Take it back to your kids and, I'm sure they'll love it. So I went to Taj and I ordered that sandwich instead of getting it as a dole from a kind chef. And I told my mom, I said, I paid for it today. But I can't get myself to eat the damn thing.
Yeah.
So these are the stories, and the very fact that I get to stay opposite that institution where my mom had worked. I get to live across the road from a gentleman that I had contested against.
You're not naming him.
His name is Rahul Gandhi. I mean, I don't know why you're so fascinated.
No,
but
I'm not fascinated with anybody. I'm a skeptic about everybody. Let me tell you that about myself.
Which is good.
But
I think that is the beauty of your country.
Yeah, sure. But
that beauty is not often celebrated.
But since we are in the lane, as you said, Mr. Gandhi lives across the road from you, and we just walked that stretch.
And people behind any security are getting jittery, I think.
Well, that's okay. Will we see you? You fought a very hard, tough fight in Amethi. You definitely made the Congress nervous. You had the Prime Minister backing you from the stage. He called you his choti behen. When Priyanka Gandhi raised the question of who is Smriti, he said, I'll tell you, she's my younger sister. Will we see you going back to Amethi in 2019?
Why would you wait till 2019? I'm in Amethi every 2 months.
No, I mean to contest. I
think that one needs to bifurcate and put in perspective 2-3 issues. When you contest because your party so desires, not because you pick a particular seat. That is not how Karyakartas work. I don't know what assignment my party will give me in 2016, let alone 2019. I do not claim this false sense of victory that, oh, the Congress is very nervous. I didn't go there to make anybody nervous or put down anybody individually. I think that fight was a fight between two kinds of ideas which are there in our country. One, where is an individual born in a very, very celebrated family, possibly had never had anything that he would need which would not be served in a platter. And on the other hand was this girl who genuinely did not come from a very privileged background, but who had a whole nation rooting for her. So for me, that is what is memorable about Amethi.
How do you see his outburst just a few days ago where he taunted the Prime Minister? He said, "Kahan hai wo 56-inch ki chhati?" He said, your chamchas, that's the word he used, you're using your chamchas to attack me and my family. He was obviously talking about Dr. Swami and the charge that, he said his company showed him as a British citizen in the UK papers, which the Congress says is a typo. But we have Rahul Gandhi now saying, you're attacking me and my family. How do you see that?
I find it very interesting. I have a certain style of giving speeches and bhashans. And I don't know if you pick up any tape of mine from Amethi, you will see me speaking in a particular style, if you may want to say that. It's interesting. I found that Mr. Gandhi had a resonance of my style of speaking.
Oh, you're saying Rahul Gandhi was copying Smriti Irani. You are.
I don't take it as a compliment. I'm not taking it as a compliment at all. Seriously.
More seriously.
No, but on a serious note.
What do you mean you felt he was talking like you?
No. I'm cracking a joke like you, cracking a joke about a certain Miss Kishwar.
Okay.
I'm of the opinion that this is a free country. He has a right to speak about whatever he wants to speak about, roll up his sleeves as much as he wants to. And I think that decisively it is a Lok Sabha election which settled the leadership issue between him and Mr. Modi. And insofar as Mr. Gandhi crying victim, I feel that just yesterday when he was in UP, with a gentleman who threatened to cut Modi to pieces.
Imran Masood.
Whoever, I mean, I don't even want to repeat his name. I think that shows the true nature of his polity. So for me
but the Congress would turn around and say, you have your Aditya Nath, you have your Kailash Vijayvargiya who asked Shah Rukh Khan to go to Pakistan. So there are motormouths in both parties,
I don't
right?
think that you need to, I think what I celebrate about my country is that Yusuf Saab had to come and rechristen himself Dilip Kumar to be a superstar. That's what he felt comfortable with. But an Amir, a Shah Rukh, a Salman, they are superstars and they've never hidden their religious identities. Like I said, I as a Hindu woman am bringing up two Zoroastrian kids. And I think that is the beauty of the diversity of faith and understanding in our country. And I'm of the opinion that till such time these issues are there in our society. I've spent 15 years in the BJP.
Yeah.
And nobody has ever asked me what kind of an Irani I am. This is the first time I'm talking about me being a practicing Hindu. But in 15 years, nobody has asked me, are you a Muslim Irani or a Zoroastrian Irani? Nobody could care less.
So how do you see his outburst?
Whose outburst?
Rahul Gandhi's.
I don't. I have genuinely a lot of work on my hands.
We had a statement or a kind of interview to PTI from his brother-in-law, Robert Vadra, who described himself to be a political tool. And he even said that, you know, if I wore kurta pajamas instead of the suits I wore, and, you know, I'm just not a hypocrite, then maybe I wouldn't have been attacked in this way. So I am being used as a political tool.
Let me just use what Mr. Vadra said to a camera person, I think from ANI. Are you serious?
Well, he expressed regret for that finally.
I was the opinion, like I said, speak all you want and do as you shall please, as long as you don't break the law. That's my understanding of the nature of things in my country.
How do you see this government proceeding with the cases against Mr. Vadra? We've had the Chief Minister of Haryana virtually declaring him guilty before the
rule of law
inquiry
shall prevail, and my party, my government has always said the due process of law shall prevail.
You mentioned Amir, you mentioned Shah Rukh, you mentioned Salman.
Then I mentioned me.
And you mentioned you. At the Ramnath Goenka Awards, you had Amir joining the debate on intolerance and saying that he'd been disturbed and felt a sense of alarm at everything he's seen in the last 6 to 8 months. He even said his wife Kiran Rao had discussed whether for the sake of their child they should move out of India. This is a pretty damning indictment coming right after Shah Rukh Khan said what he did. How do you see Amir's comments?
I think that Amir is a brand ambassador for tourism in our country.
Incredible India.
And that's what's incredible. That he can be a brand ambassador for our government, for one of our initiatives. At the same time, he can be on a platform in front of the INB Minister of the country and speak his mind. I won't get into what individually his family felt. It is his right to express that. So I feel that, like I said, we are tolerant enough for me to look away when a man objectifies me as not a cabinet minister but as a woman. We are tolerant enough when I can get booed for saying my experience as a woman is that I've never been dictated to. And I think we are tolerant enough, like I said, for us to encompass every voice that comes in this country. The very fact that people are speaking out is a very indication of a thriving free speech in our country.
But when you come down to what Amir actually said, and you pointed to the kind of interesting contradiction that he's actually a brand ambassador for India. Are you suggesting a kind of double speak there? Is that your charge?
I'm not. See, Amir having a political point of view is not new to what the Amir Khan I see.
Yeah.
He's spoken about being with Medha Patkar and being with other issues in the past.
Yeah.
And I think that my position constitutional is such, Barkha, that I can't engage with asking people to explain their political inclination. That is not my job. It's when I step down from this position that I can speak as an individual, I shall.
But you're saying he has a political inclination. You're saying his comments came from a political inclination.
No, I have said that he has a political inclination. He has a political thought. And it's his right to have that. I don't go out and ask him to explain what his political inclination is.
Did you agree with his comments? Do you feel, as a very, very senior, high-profile face of this government, that you need to pay attention to these voices?
I do not. The very fact that he was speaking before ministers is a sign that free speech thrives in our country.
This spate of artists, authors, returning awards...
Remember, I have been an artist.
Yes, that's why I asked you this question. Many of these are people you've known. You started with Ekta Kapoor. We remember you even now as Tulsi in a previous Aftar. So you're from this fraternity before you were a politician. How do you see the angst in this fraternity?
I remember that there are people like Sigmanshu Dhulia who says, I don't want to return my award.
Sure, there are many people like that. Anupam Kher says that.
And I'm of the opinion that, again, I reiterate, I'm in a constitutional position. I do not have the right to air personal views.
You've never shied away from doing that.
No, but I also am educated, irrespective of the unpad background, enough to understand that I represent a government's voice. And the government is extremely strong on one point, that every citizen has a right to free speech. Every citizen has a right to engage. There are some artists who met the Prime Minister, and the Prime Minister said, my doors are always open for anybody who wants to have a
Including those returning awards?
Including everybody.
You know, you said that everybody had the right to free speech, but we saw you in the last 24 hours getting very, very angry on Twitter with a journalist who wrote a story on her beat, your ministry, talking about an increase in the quotas of people who are being admitted in the Kendriya Vidyalayas.
Yes.
You reacted very angrily.
Yeah, because you had to
and
read
she
the
said,
editorial.
She said, I have respect for you, ma'am. You didn't give your response. Why were you so? Why did you jump on her literally?
No, I jumped.
Or in an online jump. But
No.
why did you jump on
I think one needs to recognize that being a minister at the same time does not mean that you can cast aspersions at the efforts of my government or my ministry for that matter. Did these admissions happen at the beginning of the academic year? These admissions were put before a board and which has representations of the Army, Navy and the Air Force. Our intention was to ensure that members of parliament who genuinely have large constituencies, irrespective of political background, wanted to help poor children and had absolutely no route to facilitate that. They put it up, their request, in writing. We facilitated that. We had, I mean, you're shooting me with the cameraman here. He mustn't be making as much money as you are. I had a boom mic guy who said, I don't have money, but I need my kid to get an admission. That is not a flaw, but that is what the journalist did not put. The editorial view was as though there is something very fishy about the fact.
But she said the ministry was asked for its point of view and did not respond.
Please understand that we have dealt with this particular journalist before, where we have repeated written records of communicating to their editor that the journalist is deliberately trying to project a wrong story. We have written records of it.
Isn't that personal?
It is not. It is a professional call. When you misreport and we know of it, it is our responsibility to tell the editor. How is it personal?
But there are those who may say, Smriti, you're a minister. You don't need to be getting into quarrels with individual journalists on Twitter. Your ministry can issue a statement. You can send a rebuttal.
Please understand, I have sent enough rebuttals. I'll show you a bunch of them. So the controversy comes on the first page, the rebuttal comes on the 12th in this much of a box. And the questions you posed to me today were all those front page controversies and not about the small boxes where our rebuttal was printed.
My last question to you, it kind of flows from what we're speaking about. Why is everyone talking of Smriti as being a ladaki? Someone who gets into scraps and arguments
but that's
and quarrels.
my question. What would you rather have? A subservient me?
That I can't imagine. But,
yes,
is there a middle ground?
That is the compromise I do not wish to reach. Being a minister does not mean I'm subservient, subjugated to somebody else's will. I'm a free-thinking woman who has been given a responsibility, and dare I say, with all sense of humility, I have done well in the past 1.5 years.
When you see these reports that some of Smriti's joint secretaries don't want to work with her, she's abrasive, she throws files, you've read the same stories.
No, but where am I throwing? There's nothing there. But how many people do I go and explain? So I don't bother. So there was somebody who said, इसने बोला ये मुझे खिड़की से बाहर फेंक देगी. And the irony of it is, मेरे कमरे में कोई खिड़की ही नहीं थी. Then how many people do I go and tell कि नहीं ये मेरे बारे में गलत है?
Why do they call you abrasive?
Because I possibly speak my mind without seeking permission from anybody.
Does that include speaking your mind inside your party? Have you sometimes had to pay the price for that inside the BJP?
I've spoken my mind everywhere, and my party has been respectful enough to hear my voice.
Including about the Prime Minister once in the past?
Yes, I am a living example of my Prime Minister's ability to forgive. I am that walking,
the previous criticism that you had of him
I am actually
after the riots,
a living example of his ability to forgive, of his tolerance. I attacked him personally. And he was nice enough. He was much senior than me in terms of experience and administration. I was a new kid on the block, and he walked up to me, he said, Smriti, I hope one day you will realize in an administrative position, don't judge people on the basis of media reports. See the work and then form a judgment and come and tell me, ye sahi hai, ye galat. There have been many times where he has said this. Tell me openly your experiences, what you feel in terms of administration. That's why I keep telling people, all those who make this whole Modi Hawa, I am a living example of his tolerance.
In the end, any regrets? You said I've done quite well. How would you rate your performance as a minister?
As I'm talking about as an individual, I have done well. It's not easy, Barkha, I'm 39. I've been at the top of my game in the media business. I have not done so badly in politics as well. That's unheard of. Nobody else might want to look at it, But I understand it, and I thank my God for giving me that opportunity.
Are you picked on sometimes because you're a woman?
I don't like to play victim.
Well, that's one thing you aren't, Smriti Irani. It's a pleasure
Thank
talking
you.
to you. I hope it won't be another year and a half before we speak.
Depends on the social media reaction.
Oh, no, come on. For somebody who said that I don't care about what people say, should your decisions be guided by social media?
Please understand. These are the people, like I said. I have one kid called Shilpi Tiwari online. 7 months pregnant. Genuinely a very tough pregnancy. Left everything, came there and sat there to help in Amethi. One, I call him Madcap Bagga, Tejinder Bagga, who everybody in the left wing seems to hate. Bagga never asked me for anything. Quietly came and put up posters supporting me in all the rickshaws of Amethi.
No, but
I owe them, Barkha.
But do you defend the kind of toxicity that you see on Twitter?
I owe them.
That's fine.
Am I not at the receiving end of toxicity?
We all are in different ways,
I
right?
don't cry victim then.
Nobody does. Pleasure again, and we're right outside Rahul Gandhi's house. We walked all the way there. Smriti, you want to holler in or drop in for a cup of chai or something?
No, I don't transgress boundaries. So as a constitutional, in my constitutional position, I will not invade privacy and walk into any individual's house. I'll not be that abrasive.
Thank you for talking.
But my house is always open for tea.
Good. That is a good note to go and have a cup of tea. Thank you.
Thank you.